In the accounts of the Gospels, a complex figure emerges among the 12 apostles, Judas Iscariot. He shared close association with Jesus for a substantial period, actively contributing to the group's activities. However, at a crucial moment, he chose to betray his master in exchange for a handful of silver coins, an act that resonates through the ages. But what motivated this infamous outcome? Why did Judas, who witnessed the miracles and teachings of the Messiah, succumb to betrayal for such a modest price? To understand the motivation behind the betrayal of such a close disciple, it is necessary to delve into the depths of the history of Judas Iscariot. Scriptures reveal some clues about his origin and identity. He was the son of a man named Simon, possibly hailing from one of the cities known as Kerioth. The surname Iscariot suggests a connection with these cities, derived from the Hebrew term Ish-Kerioth, which translates as man of Kerioth. Interestingly, there are mentions of these cities both in Moabite territories, according to the writings of the prophets Jeremiah and Amos, and in the region south of Hebron in Judea, as reported in the book of Joshua. Understanding the origins and social context of Judas Iscariot offers intriguing insights into his trajectory and motivations. If he indeed hailed from Kerioth in Judea, his non-belonging to the predominantly Galilean community of disciples could have fueled certain tensions and prejudices. Jews from Judea often looked suspiciously upon Galileans, considering them less observant of Jerusalem's religious traditions, a view that could have influenced Judas. Despite these potential differences, Judas actively participated in Jesus' ministry, witnessing and even performing wonders and signs in the name of the Messiah. His role as the group's treasurer suggests prior financial ability, although his management of resources revealed his true nature. When a woman generously anointed Jesus with expensive perfume, Judas objected, claiming concern for the poor. However, scriptures indicate that his motivation was not benevolence but rather greed. He didn't hesitate to embezzle funds for himself, demonstrating his greed and dishonesty. Thus, while Judas played an apparently significant role in Jesus' circle, his actions revealed a soul corrupted by greed and lack of integrity. The subsequent betrayal did not simply originate from greed for 30 pieces of silver, but from a deeply compromised character and a disposition to betray the one whom he walked with and served for so long. The duality present in the life of Judas Iscariot vividly illustrates the principle outlined in Matthew 6 verse 24. No one can serve two masters. Either you will hate the one and love the other, or you will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. Despite being part of Jesus' inner circle, internally Judas was distant from the true purpose of the Messiah. His love for money eclipsed his devotion to Christ, leading him to betray the one he was supposed to serve with loyalty and devotion. It's no coincidence that Judas is often mentioned last in the lists of the 12 apostles in the Gospels. His actions and motivations diverged from those of his peers. The Bible labels him as a traitor and suggests that his choices were instigated by the devil himself. The account in Matthew, which mentions the incident of the valuable perfume, is immediately followed by the narrative of Judas's betrayal. He then goes to the religious leaders, possibly influenced by prejudice against the Galileans, offering to deliver his master to them. Hence, they received only 30 pieces of silver in return. The comparison between Mary's generous gesture, who spent 300 denarii to honor Jesus, and Judas's treacherous action, who accepted a paltry sum in comparison, reveals a striking dichotomy. While Mary exalted the Messiah, Judas chose to betray the one he should have served with loyalty and devotion. The symbolic magnitude of the 30 pieces of silver, according to Mosaic law, adds an additional layer of meaning to Judas's betrayal. Under the law given by God to Moses, 30 pieces of silver was the established price to compensate a slave owner whose servant died accidentally, such as being gored by an ox. This amount, used as payment in case of loss of life, highlights the disregard and contempt both Judas and the chief priests had for Jesus, the humble Galilean who didn't match their expectations of a powerful and political leader. To them, the Messiah should have been a conqueror who would liberate them from the bonds of Rome, not a peacemaker who would end up crucified. Thus, the valuation of 30 pieces of silver for Jesus' life reflects the derogatory view they had of him, equating his worth to that of a slave, a widely despised social class. Although Judas's choice is condemnable and absurd, it is part of a broader divine plan. All these events, including the betrayal, are intrinsically linked to God's plan for the redemption of humanity. The prophecies of the Old Testament anticipated Jesus' betrayal, and Christ himself acknowledged that his fate was sealed. As he said in Luke, "For the Son of Man goes as it has been determined, but woe to that one by whom he is betrayed." Luke 22 verse 22. Jesus was aware of Judas's imminent betrayal and understood that it was an integral part of the divine plan for salvation. However, this does not absolve Judas of his guilt, as evidenced by Jesus' warning about the one who would betray him. God's sovereignty does not eliminate human responsibility. Instead, everything unfolds according to the Creator's will, including the choices and actions of individuals. Thus, although Judas was destined to betray Jesus, his personal responsibility remains unshaken. The sinister influence of demonic forces on Judas Iscariot adds a dark dimension to his betrayal. The Gospel of John reports that Satan entered Judas, John 13, corroborating Jesus' words in chapter 6 of the same book, where he identified one of the 12 disciples as influenced by the devil. Thus, in addition to his own traitorous impulses, Judas was being manipulated by evil forces, whose interest in the death of the Son of God was undeniable. However, this demonic influence does not absolve Judas of guilt. On the contrary, it amplified his pre-existing greed, revealing it more intensely. What is most intriguing is that, despite being possessed, Judas did not exhibit obvious external signs of his condition. He did not manifest aberrant behaviors or speak with a strange voice. Instead, he acted covertly, concealing his true malicious desires in his heart. This form of possession, asymptomatic and camouflaged, is considered one of the most dangerous within the Christian worldview. Judas's betrayal was motivated by a complex intersection of factors. His greed, disloyalty, and disillusionment with the Messiah contributed to his actions. Influenced by Satan, Judas played a role in the divine plan for Jesus' crucifixion. Aware of his treacherous intentions and ignoring Christ's warnings, Judas persisted in his course of action. Even when questioning Jesus about his own betrayal, he was already aware of his sinister plans. The life of the Son of God, in Judas's eyes, was worth merely 30 pieces of silver, a meager amount compared to the sublime act of devotion demonstrated by Mary in pouring perfume over Jesus. Judas Iscariot is fully responsible for his actions and, as a result, will face eternal punishment. Divine justice will prevail.